I never thought I'd be the woman telling this story. The woman whose life unraveled in a single moment, with just a few innocent words from a child's mouth. But here I am, and this is how it happened. My name is Olivia Reynolds, and I'm 36 years old. For 15 years I was married to Marcus, the man I met in college, the man I built my entire adult life around. We lived in a beautiful suburban home just outside Portland. Not too fancy but comfortable, with a garden I poured my heart into and 3 bedrooms that were supposed to eventually be filled with our children. Children. That's where the first cracks began, though I didn't see them then. We'd been trying for 8 years. 8 years of temperature tracking, fertility treatments, 3 miscarriages, and more disappointment than my heart could hold. Throughout it all, Marcus held my hand in doctors' offices. He wiped my tears after each loss. He assured me that no matter what happened, we were a family. Just the 2 of us if that's how it had to be. I married you, Liv, he would say. Not some hypothetical children. I believed him. God, I believed everything. 4 years, I put my career as an interior designer on the back burner, working part-time so I could focus on our fertility journey. Meanwhile, Marcus's accounting firm flourished. He became a partner by 32, and our financial security was never in question. I'd been proud of that sacrifice of prioritizing what we both said we wanted most. A family. Looking back, I can see how I disappeared into the role of Marcus's wife and would-be mother. Friends drifted away as I declined invitations, too sad or too tired from hormone treatments to socialize. My designs, once praised by my professors as innovative, gathered dust in portfolios. Meanwhile, I redecorated our home 3 times, creating the perfect nest for children who never came. I thought we were in it together. Every injection, every doctor's appointment, every nursery color scheme decision. I thought we were building toward the same dream. Then came that rainy Tuesday in March when Marcus called from work around noon. His voice tight and strange in a way I'd never heard before. Liv, I need to come home. Something's happened. It's Rachel, she's gone. Rachel. I knew the name vaguely, a colleague from his office. I'd met her once or twice at company parties. Pretty in that understated way. Divorced. I remembered her mentioning children. What do you mean, gone? I asked. Car accident. Last night. It's bad, Liv. I need to talk to you in person. When he got home, Marcus looked destroyed in a way I'd never seen before. Not even after our 3rd miscarriage. His eyes were red-rimmed, his normally immaculate shirt wrinkled. He sat heavily on our couch, the one I'd picked out imagining future family movie nights. Rachel's gone, he repeated. And her kids. Oliver is 5, Emma just turned 2. They don't have anyone else. I remember feeling a surge of sympathy. Those poor children. No mother. It was devastating. Don't they have family? Their father. I asked. Marcus looked away. No father in the picture. Her parents are elderly in assisted living. Her sister lives overseas. I could see where this was heading, and despite everything, all our losses, all our pain, I felt that familiar tug. Children needing help. A home. Love. You want to help them, I said. It wasn't a question. He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. Temporarily. Just until permanent arrangements can be made. Social services is overwhelmed, and the alternative is emergency foster care with strangers. You barely knew her, I said, confused by the intensity of his reaction. We worked together for 3 years, Liv. She was a good friend. I can't let her kids go to strangers. Not when we have the space, the resources. I should have asked more questions then. I should have wondered why he never mentioned this good friend in any meaningful way. Why he seemed shattered rather than just saddened. But grief makes people act strangely, and in that moment all I could think about was those children. How temporary? I asked. A few weeks. Maybe a couple months at most, while her sister makes arrangements to take them. I nodded slowly. Okay. We can do that. The relief on his face was palpable, and I mistook it for gratitude. Thank you, he whispered, hugging me tightly. I knew you'd understand. You have the biggest heart of anyone I know. The next day was a whirlwind. Marcus took the day off, and we transformed our home office into a makeshift children's room. I pulled out the crib we'd purchased years ago during my 2nd pregnancy, The one I couldn't bear to return after the miscarriage. We bought a small bed for Oliver. I went to Target and filled carts with clothes, toys, books, and all the necessities two small children would need. A part of me felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. Children were coming to our home. Not the way I'd imagined, not permanently, and under the worst circumstances, but still, there would be children's voices in these quiet rooms. They arrived that evening. A social worker named Diane brought them, along with suitcases and boxes of their belongings. Oliver was clutching a worn stuffed dinosaur, his small face solemn and confused. Emma was crying softly, clinging to Diane. "Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds," Diane said formally. "Thank you for opening your home during this transition period. I'll need to do a walkthrough and have you sign some temporary guardianship paperwork." As she spoke, I watched Marcus kneel down to Oliver's level. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "Remember me? From Mommy's office." The boy nodded, and what happened next shattered the foundations of my world, though I didn't understand it yet. Oliver launched himself into Marcus's arms with the familiarity of a child who'd been there before. "I tried to be brave," he whispered. "Like you said." Marcus held him tightly. "You're the bravest, Ollie. The very bravest." I felt a strange chill watching them. This wasn't the interaction of a man who occasionally saw his colleague's child at office parties. This was something else. But in the chaos of that moment, with Emma still crying, the social worker asking questions, and the emotional weight of the situation, I pushed the feeling aside. The first days were exhausting and surreal. Emma cried for her mother constantly. Oliver was quiet, watchful, clinging to Marcus whenever possible. I threw myself into caring for them, making healthy meals, reading stories, creating routines to give them stability. Marcus took time off work, something he'd rarely done even during our fertility treatments. He knew all of Emma's favorite foods, the specific way Oliver liked his blankets arranged at bedtime. He had Oliver's whole dinosaur collection memorized by name. When I mentioned this, he shrugged. "Rachel talked about them at work. You know how parents are." I didn't push it. These children had just lost their mother. What mattered was making them feel safe. A week passed. Then another. Marcus mentioned that Rachel's sister was having visa issues, and it might be longer than expected before she could take the children. I nodded, secretly relieved. I'd fallen in love with them both. Emma's dimpled smile when I made her favorite pancakes. Oliver's serious questions about everything from clouds to caterpillars. For the first time in years, our house felt alive. The garden I'd tended so carefully now had little footprints between the flowers. The kitchen was messy with fingerprints and spilled juice. At night, Marcus and I would collapse in exhaustion, but there was purpose in it. Meaning. "You're amazing with them," Marcus said one night 3 weeks in. "I knew you would be." I smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "They're incredible kids. Rachel must have been an amazing mom." His body tensed slightly. "She was." Again that odd feeling. "You seem to know a lot about her parenting style." "We talked at lunch sometimes," he said quickly. "Office stuff, you know. People share." I nodded, but something nagged at me. Marcus had never been the type to engage in workplace small talk. In all our years together, he'd barely mentioned colleagues unless they were directly involved in his projects. Still, grief changes people. Maybe Rachel's death had made him realize the importance of the connections he'd had with her, however casual. Then came the night that changed everything. It was about a month after the children had come to live with us. Our routine was established now. I would bathe Emma while Marcus helped Oliver with his bedtime preparations. Then we'd read stories together, tuck them in and turn out the lights. That night, I just finished putting Emma down when I realized I'd forgotten her favorite stuffed lamb in the laundry room. Knowing she'd wake without it, I hurried downstairs to retrieve it. Coming back up, I passed Oliver's room. The door was ajar, and I could hear Marcus's low voice. He must have been reading an extra story. Oliver had been having more trouble sleeping lately. I paused, not wanting to interrupt their moment, and that's when I heard it. "I miss Mommy," Oliver's small voice said. "I know, buddy," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I miss her too. So much. When is she coming back?" A pause. "Remember what we talked about? Mommy can't come back. But she's watching over you and Emma. Always. Like an angel? Just like an angel." I stood frozen, my heart breaking for this child. But it was his next words that stopped my world entirely. Daddy, can we put her picture next to my bed? Like at our old house. Daddy. The word echoed in my head. Impossible and yet undeniable. Not yet, Ollie, Marcus whispered. Remember our special secret? Just for a little while longer, you need to call me Marcus when other people are around. Even Olivia. I forgot, the little boy said, sounding distressed. I'm sorry. It's okay. You're doing so well. I'm so proud of you. Is Olivia mad at you? Is that why we can't tell? A longer pause this time. Nobody. It's just complicated grown-up stuff. But soon I promise everything will make sense. Now let's get some sleep, okay? I backed away from the door, Emma's stuffed lamb clutched in my trembling hands. The room seemed to tilt around me. Daddy. Oliver had called my husband Daddy. And Marcus, my husband of 15 years, hadn't corrected him. Instead, he'd spoken of a special secret. Of complicated grown-up stuff. Somehow I made it to the bathroom. Locked the door. Sat on the edge of the tub. My mind raced through every moment of the past month. Of the past several years. Rachel. The woman I'd met briefly at office parties. The woman whose name was barely mentioned in our home until her death. The woman whose children knew my husband as Daddy. Emma was 2 years old. Oliver was 5. My hands shook as I counted backward. 5 years ago, Marcus had been traveling more for work. Regional office visits, client meetings in other cities. Sometimes gone for 2 or 3 days at a time. I'd never questioned it. Never had reason to. 8 years trying for a baby. While Marcus apparently had 2 children with another woman. I don't know how long I sat there, my world collapsing around me. At some point, I heard Marcus's footsteps in the hallway. His gentle knock on the bathroom door. Liv? You okay in there? I swallowed hard. Splashed water on my face. Fine, I called back. Amazed at how normal my voice sounded. Just feeling a little off. I'll be out in a minute. Okay. I'm going to make some tea. I heard him go downstairs. My mind was racing, calculating. I couldn't confront him yet. Not with the children in the house. Not until I understood the full scope of his betrayal. Not until I had a plan. When I finally emerged and went downstairs, Marcus was at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of tea. The loving husband. The concerned partner. The man I thought I knew. You're pale, he said. Coming down with something? I shook my head, sitting across from him. Every inch of my body felt foreign, like I was operating a puppet version of myself. Just tired. It's been a big adjustment having the kids here. He reached across the table, took my hand. The same hand that had apparently held another woman. Created another family. You've been incredible, Liv. I don't know what I'd do without you. What they'd do without you. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. For years, I'd felt inadequate because I couldn't give him children. All while he had a son and daughter I knew nothing about. Have you heard anything more from Rachel's sister? I asked, watching his face carefully. A flicker of something, discomfort? Guilt? Crossed his features. It's complicated. The visa issues, and now there's some question about whether she's really in a position to take 2 young children. So what happens next? He took a deep breath. I've been thinking about that. The kids are settling in here. They're comfortable with us. And you're so natural with them, Liv. I waited, wondering if he would actually say it. If he would suggest we keep his secret children without ever telling me the truth. What if, he said slowly, we talked about making this arrangement more permanent? Not right away, of course, but eventually. If her sister decides she can't take them. I stared at him, this stranger across from me. You want us to adopt Rachel's children? Not officially necessarily, but as guardians. Long term. He squeezed my hand. I know it's not how we plan to have a family. But sometimes life has other ideas, right? Life. As if this was some twist of fate rather than his deliberate deception. It's a big decision, I said carefully. I'd need to think about it. Of course, he said quickly. No rush. Though. The social worker mentioned they like to have some clarity on the situation within the next few weeks. Of course he was pushing. Now it all made sense, the urgency to bring them home, his detailed knowledge of their preferences, the immediate bond. These weren't his colleagues' orphan children he was nobly helping. These were his own children he was trying to smuggle into our life without ever admitting the truth. "I'll think about it," I repeated. That night, lying beside him in bed, I felt miles away. The man softly snoring next to me was a stranger. 15 years of marriage, and I'd never known him at all. While he slept, I slipped out of bed with my phone. In the guest bathroom, I searched social media for Rachel Keller, the last name I'd seen on some of the paperwork. Took some digging. Her profiles were mostly private, but there were enough public photos to confirm what I already knew in my heart. Marcus appeared in several of them. Not prominently, he'd been careful about that. A group photo at a company picnic. Another at an office holiday party. But there he was standing close to her. In one, his hand was at the small of her back in a gesture of casual intimacy that made me sick to my stomach. Then I found it. A photo from 3 years ago, partly visible because someone else had been tagged in it. Rachel, much younger, holding a toddler who could only be Oliver. And there, mostly cropped out but unmistakable, was Marcus's profile, leaning in toward them with a look of pure adoration. The caption read, "My world. #blessed #family time." I closed the phone feeling strangely calm. The shock had given way to something else. A cold, clear anger that sharpened my thoughts rather than clouding them. 4 years I'd been the supportive wife. The one who put her dreams on hold. The one who endured painful procedures and devastating losses while trying to give him the family he said he wanted. All while he had another woman, another family hidden away. The next morning I called in sick to my part-time design job. Then, once Marcus had left for work and the children were settled with activities, I began my investigation in earnest. It wasn't difficult. Marcus had always handled our finances, but I had access to all the accounts. I just never had reason to look closely. Now I did. There it was. A pattern of withdrawals over the past 5 years. Regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Money for his other family. Our money. I found credit card statements showing hotel charges in the city on weekends he'd claimed to be at conferences. Restaurant bills for places we'd never visited together. A jewelry purchase 2 Christmases ago. Nothing I'd ever received. The more I uncovered, the calmer I became. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't even just a secret family. This was a calculated, long-term deception that encompassed every aspect of our marriage. While I grieved each lost pregnancy, he was raising children with another woman. While I worked part-time to focus on our fertility treatments, my income was helping support his hidden family. And now, with Rachel gone, he thought he could simply fold his secret children into our life without ever telling me the truth. Keep me in the dark forever. Let me raise his children without knowing they were his. By the time I finished my investigation, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I made several phone calls. I scanned and emailed documents. I packed a small bag and hid it in my car. Then I picked up Emma from her nap, settled her with her toys, and sat down to play with her and Oliver. These innocent children who had lost their mother, who had a father living a double life. None of this was their fault. As we built block towers and drew pictures, I studied them with new eyes. Oliver had Marcus's chin, his thoughtful expression when concentrating. Emma had his eyes unmistakably. How had I not seen it immediately? "Oliver," I asked casually as we colored, "did you and your mommy and Emma ever go on vacation?" He nodded, not looking up from his drawing. "To the beach. Daddy took us on his boat." Marcus had a boat. A small sailboat he kept at a marina about an hour away. A boat I'd been on exactly twice in 15 years because he claimed he rarely had time to use it. "That sounds fun," I said, keeping my voice light. "Did you go there a lot?" "Every summer," he said. "But Daddy said we can't go this year because—" He trailed off, his little face crumpling as he remembered his mother was gone. I pulled him into a hug, my heart breaking for him even as it hardened against Marcus. "It's okay, sweetie. You don't have to talk about it." That night I prepared Marcus's favorite meal, set the table nicely, put the children to bed with extra stories and cuddles. When Marcus came home, he looked surprised and pleased. "What's all this?" he asked, kissing my cheek. "Just felt like doing something nice," I said. "The kids are already asleep. They were exhausted from all the playing today." Over dinner, I let him talk about work. About his day. I watched him spin lies with the ease of long practice, mentioning meetings that probably never happened, colleagues who probably barely existed in the role he described. When he asked about my day, I smiled. Oliver and I had a nice chat while coloring. He told me about the boat trips you all used to take. The color drained from Marcus's face. His fork clattered against his plate. What? The summer trips. On your sailboat. The one you told me you hardly ever used. I took a sip of my wine, watching him over the rim of the glass. He has your chin, you know. Emma has your eyes exactly. Marcus sat perfectly still. Liv, I can explain. Really? You can explain having a second family for at least 5 years? You can explain watching me go through fertility treatments, miscarriages, depression. All while you had 2 healthy children with another woman? You can explain using our money I helped earn to support them? Please, Marcus. I'd love to hear this explanation. It wasn't what you think, he stammered. Rachel and I, it wasn't supposed to happen. It was just a few times and then she got pregnant with Oliver and I didn't know what to do. So you decided to live a double life? For 5 years. I was going to tell you, he insisted. After the last miscarriage you were so fragile. I couldn't. Don't you dare. I hissed, my composure finally cracking. Don't you dare use my grief as an excuse. You had 1,000 chances to tell me the truth. Instead, you let me blame myself for not giving you children, all while you tucked your real kids into bed across town. He reached for my hand. I yanked it away. Liv, please. I know I've made terrible mistakes, but those children just lost their mother. They need stability. They need us. They need their father, I said coldly. And you are their father. That much is obvious to anyone with eyes. Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I supposed to raise your secret children without ever knowing the truth? He looked away. I thought, with time, it would be easier to explain. Once they were settled. Once you'd bonded with them. Once I'd fallen in love with them, you mean? So I couldn't leave without feeling like I was abandoning them too. The calculated cruelty of it stunned me. Did Rachel know about me? His silence was answer enough. So she knew she was the other woman, the mother of your secret children. Did you promise to leave me for her someday? Is that why she went along with it? It wasn't like that, he said weakly. She understood my situation. Your situation, I repeated. You mean your complete inability to tell the truth or make a decent human choice? We sat in silence for a long moment. The beautiful home we'd built together suddenly felt like a stage set, artificial, constructed to show a life that never really existed. What happens now? He finally asked. I stood up from the table. Now I'm going to go pack a bag for you. You're going to go stay at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk about arrangements for the children because whatever happens between us, they've been through enough trauma already. You're kicking me out? From my own house. Our house, I corrected him. Paid for with our money. The same money you've been diverting to your second family for years. Yes, I'm kicking you out. Consider yourself lucky I'm giving you that much warning. He stared at me, this man I'd loved for half my life. And the children? Will stay here tonight. With me. Because unlike you, I don't use innocent children as pawns. I walked upstairs, pulled a suitcase from our closet, and methodically packed enough of his things for a few days. When I came back down, he was still sitting at the table, head in his hands. I do love you, Liv, he said quietly. I always have. I set the suitcase by the door. If this is your version of love, Marcus, I would have preferred your hatred. At least that might have been honest. After he left, I checked on the children. They were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world was about to change again. I sat in the hallway between their rooms, listening to their soft breathing, and finally allowed myself to cry. Not for the marriage I'd lost. That had been a lie all along. I cried for the years I'd wasted, for the career I'd sidelined, for the self I'd subsumed into being Marcus's wife, for the genuine grief of these children who'd lost their mother and would now face more upheaval. And then, as the first light of dawn broke through the windows, I dried my tears. There would be time for sorrow later. Right now, these children needed stability, and I needed to reclaim my life. The next morning, I called the lawyer I'd contacted the day before. Set an appointment for later that afternoon. Then I called my mother, who lived 2 hours away, and asked if she could come stay for a few days to help with the children. When Marcus texted asking when he could come home to talk, I replied simply, 3 p.m. Bring your lawyer if you have one. Then I woke the children, made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs for Oliver and hearts for Emma, and tried to give them the most normal morning possible. My mother arrived before lunch, sweeping in with her usual energy and immediately distracting the kids with the toys and books she'd brought. You look terrible, she said when we had a moment alone. Wait until you hear why, I replied. After I explained, her face hardened in a way I'd rarely seen. My gentle, forgiving mother looked ready for battle. That son of a... She stopped herself, glancing toward the living room where the children played. What do you need from me? Just watch the kids this afternoon. I have a meeting with Marcus and my lawyer. Your lawyer? You work fast. I shrugged. Turns out betrayal is quite motivating. At precisely 3 p.m., Marcus arrived with a woman in a crisp suit who introduced herself as Joanna Perkins, family law attorney. My own lawyer David Chun had arrived 15 minutes earlier and set up in the dining room. The children? Marcus asked immediately. With my mother. Stairs. This isn't a conversation they need to hear. We sat around the dining table. This strange quartet gathered to dismantle 15 years of marriage. Mrs. Reynolds has asked me to prepare divorce papers, David began without preamble. Given the circumstances, we believe we have grounds for an at-fault divorce based on adultery. Marcus flinched. His lawyer placed a calming hand on his arm. We're also prepared to request a forensic accounting of all marital assets, given Mr. Reynolds' history of diverting funds to support his extramarital family. Now wait just a minute, Marcus interrupted. I never. You never what? I asked coolly. Never sent money to Rachel and the children? Never paid for their apartment? Their expenses? Because I have bank statements that suggest otherwise. His lawyer leaned forward. My client is not denying financial support of his children. However, Mrs. Reynolds should understand that in a divorce, Mr. Reynolds' biological children would be entitled to ongoing support regardless. I'm well aware, I said, and I have no issue with the children receiving support. What I have an issue with is the years of deception and the misuse of marital funds without my knowledge or consent. David slid a folder across the table. We've prepared a preliminary division of assets that we believe is more than fair, given the circumstances. Marcus and his lawyer huddled over the document. I watched his face pale as he read through the terms. You're asking for 70% of our assets? I'm asking for what's fair, I replied. Considering I worked part-time for 8 years to focus on fertility treatments while you were secretly raising another family. Considering the emotional damage of your deception. Considering the career opportunities one sacrificed while you advanced yours. His lawyer whispered something to him. He shook his head. And the children? He asked again. What about Oliver and Emma? This was the hardest part. I took a deep breath. I believe they should remain primarily with you. You are their father after all. But I'm willing to help with the transition, to remain in their lives if that would be less traumatic for them. Marcus looked genuinely surprised. You do that? After everything? Not for you, I said firmly. For them. They've lost enough already. We spent the next 2 hours hammering out preliminary details. Custody arrangements. Financial divisions. The house would be sold, the proceeds split according to our agreement. Marcus would move into a new place with the children. I would have visitation if I wanted it. By the time the lawyers packed up their briefcases, the broad strokes of our divorce were sketched out. It would take time to finalize, but the path forward was clear. After they left, I stood in our kitchen, soon to be neither of ours, and felt a curious lightness. The pain was still there, a deep ache that might never fully heal. But beneath it was something unexpected. Relief. The relief of truth after years of unknowing deception. The relief of standing up for myself after years of compromise. My mother came downstairs, eyebrows raised in question. It's done, I said simply. Or at least started. And how do you feel? I considered the question seriously. Like I'm waking up from a very long sleep. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. The children are asking for dinner. And for their father. I'll talk to them, I said. We'll need to explain something. Will you stay here tonight? With them? I nodded. For now. Until Marcus finds a place. Then I'll figure out what's next. That evening, we told Oliver and Emma a simplified version of the truth. That Marcus would be moving to a new house soon, and they would be going with him. That I would visit sometimes. That we both cared about them very much. Oliver, with the directness of children, asked the hardest question. Are you angry because I called him Daddy? I knelt before him, looking into those earnest eyes so like his father's. No, sweetheart. Not at all. He is your daddy and you should absolutely call him that. I'm just sad because grown-ups sometimes make mistakes and hurt each other. Like when I broke Emma's toy and didn't say sorry? Despite everything, I smiled. Something like that, but bigger. But just like you and Emma work things out, we grown-ups will figure it out too. Later, after the children were asleep, I sat in the garden I'd tended so carefully over the years. Stars pricked the night sky above the flowers that would soon belong to someone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Thank you for being kind to them today. I don't deserve your consideration. I didn't reply. He was right. He didn't deserve my consideration. But the children did. And somewhere beneath the anger and betrayal, I discovered something unexpected. The first fragile shoots of my own rebirth. In trying to be the perfect wife, the would-be mother, I'd lost sight of who Olivia Reynolds actually was. What she wanted. What she deserved. Now I had the chance to find out. And despite the pain that brought me here, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of anticipation for what might come next. The next morning I woke before dawn. For a moment, lying in our bed, my bed now, I could almost pretend the last 2 days had been a nightmare. But reality rushed back as soon as I opened my eyes. My 15-year marriage was over. My husband had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. And 2 innocent children were caught in the middle. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen island, watching the sunrise paint our backyard in soft gold. This house that we'd spent years making perfect. The crown molding I'd insisted on. The garden beds Marcus had helped me build. All of it would soon belong to strangers. Strangely, the thought didn't pain me as much as I expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Can I come by before work to see the kids? Promise to keep it quick. I hesitated, then replied. 7:30. They'll be having breakfast. At precisely 7:30, Marcus arrived looking like he hadn't slept. The children were at the table eating the pancakes my mother had made. And their faces lit up when they saw him. Daddy! Emma squealed, holding up her arms. Oliver looked quickly at me, then back at his father. Marcus! He corrected himself in a small voice. I touched Oliver's shoulder gently. It's okay, sweetie. You can call him Daddy. That's who he is. The relief and confusion on the little boy's face broke my heart all over again. Marcus looked at me with something like gratitude, but I turned away. This wasn't for him. I just came to say good morning, Marcus told the children, and to let you know I'm looking at a new house for us today. One with a big backyard. Will Livia come too? Emma asked, her mouth full of pancake. Marcus glanced at me, helpless. I stepped in. I'll visit you at your new house, I said carefully. But I'll have my own place. Sometimes grown-ups need separate homes. Because Daddy made mistakes? Oliver asked. The room went silent. My mother, bless her, chose that moment to announce she was going to get more orange juice. Escaping to the kitchen. Yes, Marcus said finally, his voice rough. Daddy made some very big mistakes. But I want you both to know that you are not a mistake. You are the best things in my life, and I love you more than anything. I watched him with his children, really saw him as a father for the first time. Despite everything, it was clear he adored them. That, at least, was real. After he left for work, my mother found me in the garden, mindlessly pulling weeds. Want to tell me your plan? She asked, kneeling beside me despite her arthritic knees. Don't have one yet, I admitted. Beyond the divorce. Where will you go? What will you do? I sat back on my heels, wiping sweat from my forehead. I don't know, Mom. Everything I planned for the last 15 years was tied to this house. This marriage. Being Marcus's wife. She nodded, pulling a dandelion with surprising force. Then maybe it's time to think about what you want. Just for you. What would Olivia do if she could do anything? The question struck me like a physical blow. What would I do? Who would I be if I weren't defined by my marriage, by my failed attempts at motherhood? I used to be good at design, I said slowly. Really good. Before I scaled back for the fertility treatments. You were brilliant, my mother corrected. Your professors thought you would revolutionize sustainable urban spaces. I'd almost forgotten that the praise, the awards, the internship offers I'd turned down to follow Marcus to his accounting job in Portland. That was a long time ago. Not so long, she countered. And talent doesn't expire, Livy. Later that day, while the children napped and my mother watched her soap operas, I dug through the attic until I found them. My portfolios from design school. Leather-bound collections of sketches, renderings, material samples. Evidence of a passion I'd gradually set aside. I spread them across the guest room floor, seeing my work with fresh eyes. There was energy in these designs, innovation. The professor's comments leapt off the page. Groundbreaking approach to multifunctional spaces. Exceptional integration of sustainable materials. Olivia sees possibilities others miss. Something flickered in my chest. A spark of the person I used to be. The designer who didn't just follow trends but created them. The woman with ambitions beyond being someone's wife. That afternoon I made a call to Elise Chan, my former classmate who now ran her own successful design firm in Seattle. We'd lost touch over the years. Another casualty of my retreating from the world during the fertility struggles. Olivia Reynolds, she answered, surprise evident in her voice. It's been forever. Too long, I agreed. Listen, I'm going through some major life changes, and I'm thinking about getting back into design seriously. I wondered if you might be willing to look at my old work, maybe give me some advice on where the industry is now. There was a pause, and for a moment I feared she would make an excuse. But then, I'd love to. Actually, we should meet in person. I'm coming to Portland next week for a client meeting. Lunch. We set a date, and after hanging up, I felt something I hadn't in years: anticipation. Not for something related to fertility treatments or making Marcus happy, but for myself. My future. The next few days fell into a strange rhythm. Marcus would come by in the mornings and evenings to see the children. I would make myself scarce during these visits, working in the garden or taking long walks. My lawyer called with updates on the divorce proceedings. Marcus's lawyer tried to negotiate down the asset division. My lawyer held firm. Through it all, I continued to help care for Oliver and Emma during the day. Despite everything, I'd grown to love these children. Their resilience amazed me. Having lost their mother, now navigating the tension between the adults in their lives. Oliver would seek me out with questions about plants or insects, and Emma would toddle after me with books she wanted read. In quiet moments, I wondered how I would feel when they moved out with Marcus. Would they remember me? Would I be allowed to remain in their lives in any meaningful way? A week after my world imploded, Marcus announced he'd found a house to rent, just 10 minutes away. It's not as nice as this place, he said, standing awkwardly in our entryway after saying goodnight to the children. But it has 3 bedrooms and a decent yard. I nodded, keeping my distance. When will you move in? I get the keys on Friday. I thought maybe we could take the kids to see it this weekend? Help them get excited about it. He had the grace to look embarrassed. I thought it might be easier for them if you were there. Show them it's okay. That we're civil. I considered refusing. It would be easy to let him handle this alone. It was his mess, after all. But then I thought of Oliver's worried face, Emma's confusion. Fine, I said. For the kids. On Saturday morning, we drove in separate cars to the rental house. A modest rancher in a family-friendly neighborhood. The children ran excitedly from room to room while Marcus pointed out features. The tree perfect for a swing in the backyard. The wall where they could measure their heights as they grew. I hung back, observing this strange tableau. Marcus with his children planning their new life. A life that should have included me if things had been different. If he'd been honest from the beginning. What do you think? He asked me quietly while the kids explored the backyard. It's fine, I said. Good schools in this area. Liv, he started then stopped. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry. Sorrier than I can ever express. I looked at him. This man I'd loved for half my life. In the bright sunshine, I could see new lines on his face, gray threading through his dark hair. Had those always been there, or were they the product of recent stress? Why? I asked the question that had been burning inside me. Why not just divorce me when Rachel got pregnant? Why the elaborate deception? He sighed heavily. I wish I had a good answer. First it was shock. I never planned to have an affair, and when she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. We were in the middle of the fertility treatments. You were so hopeful. I told myself I could handle it. Support her and the baby financially without disrupting our life. Our life, I repeated. The one where I blamed myself for not being able to conceive while you fathered children with someone else. I know. He ran a hand through his hair. After Oliver was born, I thought about telling you. But then you got pregnant and I didn't want to cause you stress. And then after the miscarriage, you were so devastated. There never seemed to be a right time. And then Emma? A flush crept up his neck. By then I was in too deep. I was living two separate lives. I'd convinced myself that I was doing the right thing for everyone. Providing for both families. Not hurting you with the truth. How magnanimous, I said coldly. I'm not defending myself, he said. What I did was unforgivable. I want you to know it wasn't because I didn't love you. As twisted as it sounds, I thought I was protecting you. I laughed bitterly. Protecting me by letting me think I was broken? By watching me go through painful procedures and devastating losses while you played happy families elsewhere? That's not protection, Marcus. That's cowardice. Before he could respond, Oliver came running back inside, asking if his toy dinosaurs could have their own room in the new house. The moment for brutal honesty passed, replaced by the practical matter of reassuring a 5-year-old about his new home. That evening, after returning to our house, I sat with the children while Marcus packed more of his things. Emma fell asleep on my lap as I read her favorite story. Oliver was quieter than usual, pushing his toy cars across the rug without his typical sound effects. Are you okay, buddy? I asked. He shrugged, not looking up. I don't want to leave you. My heart squeezed painfully. I'll still see you. I promise. But not every day. Not for pancakes and stories. No, I admitted. Not every day. But your daddy loves you so much, and he'll make you pancakes and read you stories too. It's not the same, he said with a child's devastating simplicity. I had no answer for that. It wasn't the same. Nothing would ever be the same again. Later, after Marcus had loaded his car and left with promises to return tomorrow for the children and more of their things, I found myself alone in the house for the first time in days. My mother had gone home that afternoon, satisfied that I was stable enough to manage on my own. The silence was both eerie and liberating. No children's voices. No careful conversations around Marcus. Just me and the echoing rooms of a house that would soon no longer be mine. I opened a bottle of wine and carried it to the master bathroom, running a bath with the expensive oils I rarely indulged in. As I soaked in the steaming water, I scrolled through my email on my tablet. Among the usual clutter was a message from Elise, confirming our lunch and sending links to several design projects her firm was working on. The designs were breathtaking, innovative uses of space and materials, but with a warmth that made them inviting rather than merely impressive. I could see why her firm was thriving. On impulse, I opened my cloud storage and uploaded photographs of my old design portfolios. Thought you might want to see some of my work before we meet. I wrote in a response email. It's ancient history, but it's where my head used to be. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then sank deeper into the fragrant water. The wine warmed my blood, and for the first time in days, I felt the knot of tension in my shoulders begin to loosen. My phone pinged with a text. I expected Marcus with some question about the children's routines, but instead it was an area code I didn't recognize. The message read, Olivia, it's David Chan, your lawyer. Sorry to text after hours, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Marcus's lawyer reached out with a counterproposal on the asset division. They're asking for mediation rather than litigation. Call me Monday to discuss. In the meantime, don't sign anything. I set the phone down, mind racing. Mediation could be faster, less costly. But it might also mean compromising on the terms I felt I deserved after years of deception. I made a mental note to call David first thing Monday, then deliberately pushed legal thoughts away. Tonight was for me, just me, and the beginning of imagining a future on my own terms. Sunday passed in a blur of packing, Marcus gathering the children's belongings, me helping Emma decide which toys would go to the new house and which could stay at Livia's house for visits. Oliver was subdued, asking several times if I was sure I couldn't come live with them. Each time my heart broke a little more. By Sunday evening, the house felt emptier than ever. Marcus had taken the children to spend their first night at the new house, and I wandered from room to room, not sure what to do with myself. The silence that had seemed liberating just the night before now felt oppressive. On impulse, I called my friend Tara. Another relationship I'd let fade during my years of fertility struggles and gradual withdrawal from social life. "Liv," she answered, surprise evident in her voice. "Everything okay?" "Not remotely," I said with a bitter laugh. "But I could really use a drink with a friend." 2 hours later, we sat in a corner booth at a wine bar downtown, and I told her everything. The secret children, the confrontation, the impending divorce. "That absolute bastard," she said when I finished, signaling the server for another round. 15 years, and he was living a double life the entire time? "Not the entire time," I corrected. "Just the last 5 or so." "Oh well, that makes it so much better," she said sarcastically. "Only a third of your marriage was a complete lie." Put that way, it did sound absurd. I found myself laughing, a slightly hysterical edge to it, but genuine laughter nonetheless. God, Tara, what am I doing? I'm 36, soon to be divorced with no real career, about to lose my home. It's like I'm starting from scratch. She leaned forward, her expression serious. Or you're 36 with no deadweight husband, free to pursue whatever career you want, and about to have a significant divorce settlement that can set you up in a new home of your choosing. Perspective, babe. I blinked, considering her words. I guess that's one way to look at it. The right way, she insisted. Look, what Marcus did is unforgivable. But you have a chance now to build exactly the life you want. No compromises. No putting your dreams on hold for someone else. When was the last time you could say that? The question lingered with me long after we'd hugged goodbye and I'd taken a rideshare home. When was the last time my life had been truly my own? Before Marcus? Before the years of trying for a baby became my entire identity? That night I couldn't sleep. I prowled through the house, mentally cataloging what I would take when I left and what I would leave behind. The furniture we'd chosen together, leave it. The art I'd collected on my own, take it. The kitchen gadgets, mostly leave them. My design books and portfolios, definitely take them. By morning I had a clear inventory and a clearer head. I called David Chun as soon as his office opened. "Mediation," I told him. "I'll do it. But I want the terms we discussed. I'm not backing down on the asset division." "Good," he said, sounding pleased. "I'll set it up. In the meantime, have you thought about where you'll live after the house sells?" I hadn't, not seriously. "I'm working on it," I lied. After hanging up, I realized I needed to make that true. The divorce would take months to finalize, but the house would likely sell quickly in the hot Portland market. I needed a plan. My lunch with Elise was scheduled for the next day. I spent the morning reviewing current design trends, refreshing my memory on software I hadn't used in years, preparing as if this were a job interview rather than catching up with an old friend. We met at an upscale farm-to-table restaurant downtown. Elise looked exactly as I remembered her, petite, stylish, with a confident energy that filled the space around her. "Olivia Reynolds," she said, hugging me warmly. "God, it's been too long." "I know," I said, suddenly embarrassed by how I dropped off the face of the earth. "Life got complicated. Doesn't it always?" She smiled, gesturing for me to sit. "I looked at your portfolio photos last night. I'd forgotten how brilliant your work was." "Was this the operative word?" I said. "I've been out of the game a long time." "But you want back in?" I nodded, surprised by the certainty I felt. "I do. I'm going through a divorce. Selling my house. Starting over completely. And I keep coming back to design. It's what I loved before. Before life got complicated," she finished for me. "Well, your timing might be perfect. We're expanding the firm. Opening a satellite office in Portland, actually." My heart skipped a beat. "You are?" She nodded, taking a sip of her water. "We've picked up several major clients in this area. The commute from Seattle is getting old. We need local talent who understands the Portland aesthetic and building codes. And you think I could be that talent? After a decade away from professional design, I think you have the foundation, she said carefully. You'd need to update your skills, learn the current software. But the way you think about space, about materials, that's innate. And from what I remember, you have that in spades. By the time dessert arrived, we were deep in discussion about potential roles, salary ranges, training periods. It wasn't a formal offer. There would need to be interviews, portfolio reviews with other partners, but it was hope, a direction, a future I could see myself in. One more thing, Elise said as we waited for the check. The position would require travel. Not constant but regular trips to job sites, client meetings in other cities. Sometimes last minute. 5 years ago, that would have been a deal breaker. I'd structured my entire life around being available for fertility treatments, for Marcus's schedule. That works for me, I said, feeling a rush of freedom in the words. Walking back to my car after lunch, I called my realtor friend Jessica. I need to sell my house, I told her. And I need to find a condo or loft downtown. Something with good light. Walking distance to restaurants and shops. Downtown, she repeated. That's a change from the suburbs. Everything's changing, I said. Might as well include my address. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. The house went on the market and received multiple offers within days. I interviewed formally with Elise's firm and was offered a 3-month trial position as a junior designer. A step down from where I might have been had I stayed in the field, but a foot in the door with room to advance. Marcus and I met twice with the mediator, hammering out details of the divorce settlement. He fought harder than I expected on the asset division, but ultimately agreed to my terms. Whether out of guilt or practicality, I wasn't sure. The children are asking about you, he said after one session as we walked to our cars. They miss you. I miss them too, I admitted. More than I expected to. He hesitated. Would you want to take them for dinner sometime? Or come over for pizza night on Friday? They'd love to see you. I considered refusing. It would be easier to make a clean break. From Marcus, from his secret family, from the whole mess. But the thought of never seeing Oliver's thoughtful face or hearing Emma's belly laugh again made my chest ache. Friday, I agreed. But I'm not staying long. That Friday evening, I brought books for both children and a bottle of wine I had no intention of sharing with Marcus. The rental house was sparsely furnished but tidy, with the children's artwork already taped to the refrigerator. Oliver launched himself at me the moment I walked in, nearly knocking the wind out of me with his enthusiastic hug. Emma toddled over more slowly, suddenly shy, but soon warmed up when I pulled out the picture book about dragons I'd brought her. We ate pizza on a picnic blanket in the living room. Marcus had yet to buy a dining table, and I read stories until both children were yawning. When it came time for bed, Oliver clung to me. Can't you stay? He whispered. Please. I held him close, breathing in the clean child smell of his hair. Not tonight, buddy. But I'll see you again soon. I promise. After the children were asleep, I found myself alone with Marcus for the first time in weeks. He offered me a glass of the wine I'd brought, and against my better judgment I accepted. They're adjusting well, I said, gesturing toward the bedrooms. Better than I expected, he agreed. Kids are resilient. More than we give them credit for. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Once this man had been my best friend, my partner in everything. Now he was practically a stranger. Or worse, someone I thought I knew but never really had. I got a job, I said finally, with a design firm downtown. Surprise flickered across his face. Design? Like interior design. Urban spaces. Commercial properties, some high-end residential. It's a trial position for now, but it has potential. That's great, Liv. Really. I know how talented you are. Were, I corrected. It's been a long time. I'm essentially starting over. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Sometimes starting over is the only way forward. The words hung between us, laden with multiple meanings. Starting over. Moving forward. Things neither of us had planned for, but both now faced. I should go, I said, setting down my barely touched wine. You could stay a bit longer, he offered. Talk. Like we used to. I stood gathering my purse. We never really talked, Marcus. Not about anything that mattered. You lived a whole separate life I knew nothing about. That's not a communication issue. That's a fundamental breach of trust. He flinched but didn't argue. I'll call about seeing the kids next week, I said, moving toward the door. Liv, he said as I reached for the handle. I really am sorry. Not just for getting caught. For all of it. For hurting you. For wasting years we could have been honest with each other. I looked back at him. This man I'd loved, built a life with, and ultimately never really known. I'm sorry too, I said softly. Sorry I spent so many years trying to be someone I thought you wanted instead of figuring out who I actually was. The next day I signed a lease on a downtown loft. All exposed brick and massive windows, with a view of the river and mountains beyond. It was nothing like the suburban home I'd shared with Marcus. It was entirely mine. As I stood in the empty space, sunlight streaming through the windows, I called my mother. I found a place, I told her. And a job. And I think I'm going to be okay. Of course you are, she said with absolute certainty. You're finally becoming Olivia again. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. The house had sold for well above asking price, and my portion of the proceeds, combined with my share of our other assets, gave me a financial cushion I'd never expected to have on my own. My trial position at the design firm had turned into a permanent role after I brought in a significant restaurant client who loved my concept for sustainable materials and flexible dining spaces. I was still junior compared to most of my colleagues, but I was learning rapidly and contributing meaningfully. I saw Oliver and Emma every week, sometimes taking them to the children's museum or park, sometimes just for ice cream and stories. It was bittersweet, loving these children who would never be mine, but I couldn't imagine severing the connection entirely. Marcus and I settled into a cool civility, exchanging necessary information about the children but little else. Sometimes I caught him looking at me with regret, but we both knew there was no going back. Too much had been broken to ever be repaired. 6 months after the night I'd overheard Oliver call Marcus Daddy, I attended a conference in Chicago on sustainable urban design. My firm had sent me to represent our Portland office, a vote of confidence that both terrified and exhilarated me. On the second evening, during a networking reception, I found myself deep in conversation with the keynote speaker, a renowned architect whose work I'd admired for years. He was interested in my perspective on integrating green spaces into commercial developments, an area where my concepts had always been strongest. Your approach is refreshing, he told me, not derivative of current trends. Where have you been hiding? I laughed, swirling the wine in my glass. Suburbia. For about a decade. Well, I'm glad you escaped, he said with a warm smile. The industry needs voices like yours. Later that night, in my hotel room overlooking the Chicago skyline, I called my mother. How's the conference? She asked. Boring? Intimidating? Full of pretentious design people? All of the above, I admitted. But also, invigorating. I had a conversation today with someone whose work has been featured in every major design publication, and he treated me like a peer. Like I had something valuable to contribute. Because you do, she said simply. It's strange, I continued. A year ago I thought my life was set. I was Marcus's wife. I was still trying to be a mother. That was my identity, my future. And now, I looked out at the glittering city below, at the life I'd never imagined for myself unfolding in unexpected directions. Now I'm just Olivia, I said. And it turns out that's more than enough. When I returned to Portland, there was an email waiting from the architect I'd met at the conference, inquiring if I'd be interested in collaborating on a project. There was a message from Elise about a potential promotion, and there was a text from Marcus, asking if I'd be willing to take the children for a weekend while he traveled for work. I said yes to all three. That weekend with Oliver and Emma was chaotic and exhausting, and filled with more joy than I'd felt in years. We built blanket forts in my loft, baked cookies that turned out lopsided but delicious, and spent hours at the Interactive Science Museum where Oliver declared he wanted to be a dinosaur scientist when he grew up. Sunday evening, when Marcus came to pick them up, Oliver hugged me fiercely. I wish you could be my mom too, he whispered. I held him close, tears prickling behind my eyes. I'll always be here for you, buddy. Always. After they left, I sat in my window seat overlooking the city I was rediscovering. The pain of Marcus's betrayal would never fully disappear, but it had transformed into something different. A scar rather than an open wound. A reminder of what I'd survived. In the strangest way, his deception had set me free. Free from a marriage built on lies. Free from the endless cycle of fertility treatments and disappointments. Free to rediscover the woman I'd been before I became so consumed with being someone's wife, someone's would-be mother. My phone pinged with a text from Tara, asking if I wanted to join her and some friends for dinner downtown. A year ago, I would have declined, too wrapped up in my carefully constructed suburban existence to step out of routine. Be there in 20, I replied, already moving toward my closet. Outside, Portland sparkled in the early evening light. From my window, I could see the river snaking through the city, carrying everything toward the open sea. Like water finding its true path, I had found mine. Not the one I'd planned, but perhaps the one I was always meant to travel. As I stepped out onto the city streets, surrounded by possibility and motion and life, I realized that the most unexpected twist in my story wasn't the betrayal or the secret children or the divorce. It was the discovery that losing everything I thought I wanted had somehow brought me exactly what I needed. My name is Olivia Reynolds. I am 37 years old. And this is not the end of my story. It's only the beginning.